I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Friday, January the 5th. And boy, do we have a live stock market closing over 25,000 points for the first time in over 120-year history there. And you know, the great thing about living here in the United States is even the non-believers can make fun of Trump all they want and they still get the benefit on their portfolios, their 401ks, their taxes, and all the things that he's brought to us in a year's time. But really booming here on the economy in the United States. Not quite so active in the cattle market as far as fat cattle anyway. This week we haven't seen any trade. Still waiting on this trade that's going to happen sometime on Friday. You know, maybe $1.25. Wouldn't that be great? Sounds like a good round figure to stop at, but we just haven't seen anything at all, and both sides kind of dug in here. The board was not all that helpful on Thursday. If you look at the board, February live cattle down 70 cents, ending the day at 122.25, and I don't believe that means that we're going to be steady or lower. I still think we could see higher cash prices this week, but it may come out before you guys see this and I'll sound like a dummy, but I still think we could have a chance of getting 125. You look at the April live cattle contract down 55 cents at 123.82, and you're starting to see all the volume rolling from February down into April in some of these lower months, and it won't be long before February will not be the heaviest traded contract. March feeder cattle down $1.27 on Thursday to end the day at 145.55. January spot feeder contract down 35 cents at 149.02, and still a $5 to $6 discount to what the cash market is. And I think, guys, we could see a pretty good run up in that, because I do not see this cash market failing here the next few weeks, because guys are really behind. We had an extended period of not moving very many cattle. We've got buyers that are pretty aggressive. We've got some good cattle coming to town. I don't see that we're going to lose that cash market. Those two got to come together at some point, and I think there could be a run up in that January, even though it's fairly lightly traded. Like I said earlier, your fat cattle trade has not developed at all. We're still waiting to see what that's going to do. We've seen a few deals here and there, a load or two, or a few loads. 123 delivered in Iowa, 122.5 FOB in Nebraska. We've seen some 195 dressed, which would be steady, but it'll be interesting to see, and they may wait till late in the day on Friday to do anything there. Your slaughter, so far for the week, been pretty decent, trying to recover. Remember, we're still in a holiday week. New Year's Day was a holiday, so 340,000 through Thursday there. That's 12,000 more than the previous week, which had Christmas on the start of it. 20,000 less than the same week a year ago, but you remember our holidays were on a different day of the week last week, and it's hard to compare that. But this cold weather snap that we've seen, and really getting cold in the heavily populated areas in the Northeast, they're calling that thing a bomb cyclone, which sounds like something you do off the diving board after several beers, but I'm not sure why they call it that. It sounds to me like a nor'easter, which is what they always have called it. But that cold snap is really going to sap the shelves in the grocery stores. That always helps. A cold snap usually always helps the market. Another reason I think that we might could see that 125, because anytime you get a cold snap, and we had one earlier in the week and the prior week, in the northern plains and even in the southern plains, it really saps the weight off of those cattle. That tends to help the market. It may slow the chain speeds down a little bit if they can't get the workers in there and the roads are bad. We haven't seen a whole lot of that, but usually a cold weather snap kind of helps the market in the short term, and we should see some benefit of that here late this week. But look at some other information. Your actual dressed steer weights for the week ending December 23rd come out. Your average dressed steer weighed 903 pounds. That's 6 pounds heavier than the same time a year ago, and we've been running all of last year lighter than what the previous year was. So we're getting back up there, but like I said, we get into these cattle that were killed during and after the bitter cold weather up there, and it really saps the weight off those cattle, especially when you start to moving them around. But look at some feeder markets. Real-time index on Beef Market Central based on the 800-pound steer was down on Thursday, $1.49. Late in the day, it's at 154.72. I don't really think that's much of the market, but we had more of our high volume sales coming from the southern plains and lower in the Midwest than we had seen earlier in the week, which was some big sales in the northern plains that were really a premium to what the average of the market is. But some big sales on Thursday. Joplin Regional Stockyards had a value-added special at 6,000 head there. Trade was very active. If you look at the trends, it's always hard to call a trend on that because they don't have those regular enough to really call a trend. But the market was a premium to the regular sale that they had on Tuesday, not Monday, but on Tuesday. It was a premium to that. But a similar type trend than we had early this week at the regular sale, which saw calves selling $5 to $7 higher and feeders selling steady, some of the feeder heifers $2 higher. But really, you know, that's kind of surprising because you ultimately got to look down the road at your live cattle contracts and what those cattle are going to finish out at. And those calves weighing all the way up into the sixes are not going to finish in line with that April board, and they're going to see that big drop off that goes on into the summer months for a finished out steer or heifer, and still your big heavy feeders are selling about steady, and those are the cattle that look like they'll work better on paper than some of the calves will. Note they're going to have a wean vac special here on Friday, Ozarks Regional Stockyards in West Plains, Missouri. You can view that here on dvauction.com, and that should be an active sale there too. Some other sales they had on Thursday. Pratt, Kansas, back in business here in the new year, 2,600 head. Did get some information out from Market News there, but steady to firm undertone, they called it, kind of punted the trend there. But it's a decent market. Another sale that had quite a few head was Farmers and Ranchers Livestock in Salina, Kansas. They just had a sale earlier this week with a big run and still had over 4,200 head here on the regular Thursday sale. If you look at the market report on Cattle Market Central there, the popular weights, 795 head of 7-weight steers, average 753 pounds at 152.96. 784 head of 8-weight steers, average 848 at 148.88. Look at some individual quotes that I thought were fairly impressive on Thursday. Clarinda, Iowa, they had a good sale there just after lunchtime on Thursday. Sold 61 head of steers, weighed 729 pounds at 165.75. And evidently the cold streak that they had go through the eastern part of the country, in Kentucky saw some cold weather. Was got those yearlings out of that Kentucky area selling high again. Had some really impressive quotes out of Bluegrass Stockyards at Stanford. You look at this quote here, they had 64 head of steers, big steers, weighing 896 pounds, bring 154. And I'm not talking about behind a feedlot somewhere in Nebraska. I'm talking about in Stanford, Kentucky. They also had another load weighed 825 pounds at 156, and those are both very impressive for any part of the country, but especially out east there. But that's your feeder flash for Friday.